Hello, friends, and welcome back to a very long overdue naughty story time with Lady Mac. Author Carissa McIntyre here, and as promised, I have a reading for you, but it will not be from my newest novel for a couple of reasons, and let me quickly explain. It's still under editing review, and it does not start like most of my other novels. It's got an intense first chapter, but it is not like jump in and blow your socks off with sex. As some of you know, that is how Cuffed, In Kim's Favor, and Force Without Fear start. So does Heist. Many books. So this one doesn't. And the chapters that are spicy have not yet gone through editing. And I am very hesitant to read that out loud and catch 801 typos or feel like it's lacking something. I really feel like it needs to go through editing before I present Naughty Storytime to you. Second of all, as I've stated before, Another Woman's Sins is not what I normally write. It is dark. It is 801 trigger warnings. So I feel like I need to present that better and more clearly before I start reading. So all that aside, there will be a sneaky peek at Another Woman's Sins coming up very soon. As soon as those chapters get a chance to be reviewed and edited, I will definitely read something spicy to you. But it will probably have quite an intro. This one has an intro too, but I felt like I needed to explain to y'all why it wasn't Another Woman's Sins. I'll be reading to you from Song of Survival. And I'm going to change my camera view just a tiny little bit. I feel like I cut myself off there. That's better. Beautiful. Lovely. I'm in my living room, got plenty of light up here, and this is a very different setup for me, so I hope it turns out all right. I don't want to have to record a second time, third time, fourth time. Y'all have no idea how much work goes into some of my behind the scenes. Anyway, today I'm reading to you from Song of Survival. I have no idea if the snippet that I'm reading has spoilers from book one or not. I don't think so, considering the characters that Celeste is meeting and having interactions with in this book aren't in the first book. She meets them in this one. And obviously she survives, so I don't think that's a spoiler. If you like what you hear, please grab a copy of book one, Forced Out of Fear, and then this is book two, Song of Survival. You can find all of them on Amazon. You can also find all of them on my website, ladymackxo.com. I have a bookstore where you can find signed copies, and I even have my little lipstick in there. I almost slapped myself with it. Not the time to be slapped. All right. Yeah, I'm rusty. You can tell. It's been a while. And I shouldn't be, because the other night I hosted a really fun R-rated sexy trivia at Urban, and I threatened to spank a bar of people with my crop. So I'm not entirely rusty. It's just been a while since I've done this. My setup sucks. My mic's probably picking up all kinds of stuff. The city showed up as soon as I decided to record. They're outside doing something with the sewers, and if it gets too loud, I'll have to stop. But now, without any further ado, Song of Survival. Don't worry, I even marked a spot, so I'm prepared. No one has touched me, she says finally. Good, Marcus replies. Something else must have flashed across her face at his reply, because he laughs, his hand still caressing the side of her face. It just wouldn't be fair if I didn't get first dibs on the prettiest girl here, now would it? Celeste doesn't know what to make of that, so she doesn't say anything, but her body responds, betraying her. I never did give a trigger warning. This involves scenes of non-consent. So, if you're looking for consent, which we should all have consent, this is fantasy. He wants her. And since he's not giving her a dangerous vibe, but he is giving her a strong, dominating vibe, her body is eager to find out how. Not a talker, huh? That's okay. I can use your mouth for other things. Marcus rolls his thumb over her bottom lip as he says this, her mouth opening slightly as a little gasp of air slips out. Then, reaching down her body, he tugs on the bottom of her sweater, pulling it up, slowly exposing her stomach. All that excitement she'd just been feeling turns to sheer panic at how fast this is going. Feeling bold and scared, realizing this is actually about to happen, Celeste retorts back in a sassy tone, glad to be of use for something. Unexpectedly, Marcus lets go of her sweater, leaning back from her on the bed, and lets out a big, deep laugh. A little sassy, huh? I like that in a woman. Celeste isn't sure what's come over her. Maybe it's the fear or the desperation. But if this could give her an opening to find a way out of this, she'll take it. Glad you like something about me, considering it doesn't seem like I have much of a choice in whether you take me or not. At least you'll enjoy it. Marcus gives her a pointed look, then leans over her and grabbing her sweater once more, slowly begins to pull it upwards, exposing her stomach and then her breasts. Oh, I like the look of you, sure enough. And I like that mouth of yours too so far, bratty or not. Her arms are yanked up with the sweater as he pulls it over her head, and then she's sitting there in only her bra. It's cold, and she feels extremely vulnerable. She's quick to wrap her arms around her chest, trying to keep herself covered. He tosses her sweater off the bed and looks at her hungrily. And I promise you, you'll enjoy it too. When he says that, her body lights on fire, once more betraying her. It's the apocalypse, baby. It's time to take whatever I want, and I want you. Besides, when my men found you and your friends, you sure didn't look like you had anywhere to be, anywhere to keep you safe, or a man who could protect you and provide for you. That woman's pathetic husband sure can't, and wouldn't. I can. As he says this, he touches her face once more, running his thumb across her bottom lip again, pulling it outwards and downwards, his large, warm palm across her cheek. The flush inside of her grows, and Celeste has to do something to stop her body from betraying her like this. At the cost of rape, Celeste says, the words drenching over her like cold water. Trying to snap her out of the spell, this man seems to have her under. She leans back from him as she tightens her arms around her chest, covering herself, shivering in the cold room, in only her bra and pants, shivering from the uncertainty. She longs to tell him that she needs him to let her go, because she has somewhere important to be, someone who needs her, someone she's supposed to be protecting. Jeremy's name hovers on the edge of her lips. Maybe, knowing that she's a mother, that her son is in trouble will help her out of this, but maybe not. She decides she isn't going to tell him about her son yet. She wants to feel this out. She doesn't want him to be able to use that against her or somehow make anything worse. Marcus stares at her hard a moment longer, not answering her, the silence building between them. Celeste is deep in thought about her current situation, but the way he looks at her, it's almost as if he can read her thoughts. She hates the intensity of it, but she doesn't have the nerve to say anything else after that word. She won't be the first to break the silence, so she lets it build even more, the tension growing. Suddenly, he reaches up and pulls her arms away from her body, exposing her, pulling both her wrists to one hand and holding them tight. Leaning his body closer, he reaches around behind her and unclasps her bra in one smooth, quick motion. Her breasts fall free. Her nipples instantly rock hard in the cold of the room. Or from her forbidden excitement. With his body this close to her, he smells like sweat and hit him something else, something musky, and every hormone inside of her screams out for more, even as her brain screams out in terror at what he's doing to her, what he's about to do to her. Leaning back from her once again, he finally lowers his intense gaze from hers. His eyes travel down her body to take in her chest in desire as he bites his lower lip. Everything comes at a cost, even more so in a time like this. Besides, you don't look like you want me to stop. Marcus looks back up at her, his eyes drilling into hers, daring her to put up a fight. Celeste feels her face flush in shame as she sits there and doesn't move while he reaches out and pinches one of her nipples ever so gently, softly, taking his time. His fingers are warm, his firm grip, and she lets out a little involuntary gasp. Fuck, he's right. She doesn't want him to stop. She wants more. He laughs and, never taking his eyes off of her, reaches over to pinch the other one a little harder, rolling it between his thumb and finger, pulling it taut. Celeste hates that a part of her is drawn to him, but she knows it has nothing to do with what he's offering her. Her body is acting like a bitch in heat because of his strong, masculine presence and dominating demeanor. His warm fingers on her nipples, the look of hunger on his face as he drinks her in, the fact that a man hasn't laid a hand on her or looked at her with such hunger since Donovan died. The fact that she's been desperate for someone to touch her, and this man is offering her exactly that. All things her inner goddess craves. Suddenly it dawns on her how she could try to use this to her advantage, how she could maybe figure out a way to escape, and how she could possibly keep herself safe. If this is going to happen one way or another, if he's determined to have her right here, right now, then it's going to happen on her terms, not rape. And maybe she can use her sexual charms to gain favor with him and get his help. The thought gives her thrills and a tremor of terror all at once. Fuck, is she really going to do this? But, next to killing a man, what's sex with a handsome, demanding stranger, if it might keep her alive and on equal ground a little longer? And if it's kinky and fun as well? She doesn't have to entirely let herself be the victim here. Without allowing herself time for another thought, not to second guess what she's about to do, or to talk herself out of it, she leans in and grabs his shirt and pulls him into her, kissing him first. Pressing her lips to his, she leans her body in eagerly, sliding her tongue into his mouth, catching him off guard. He tasted like beer and cigarettes. Her hunger surprises him, but doesn't stop him, only encourages him. His hand moves to the back of her head, holding her there, wrapping his fingers in her hair, kissing her back just as hungrily, biting her lip. He pulls her into him and turns them both around on the bed, laying her down below him. Without breaking their kiss, he begins to rip at her jeans, tugging her out of them, panties too. Celeste doesn't allow herself to think. She doesn't trust herself to. She only allows herself to feel, to experience, to take, to enjoy. Now that she's fully naked, he ends their kiss and pulls back to sit up on the bed, taking her in with his intense stare once more. And now it's her turn to be surprised, when instead of taking off his own clothes, or taking out his cock and simply fucking her like she expects him to, He lies there fully dressed beside her, taking her in with just his eyes. It leaves her feeling extremely vulnerable, and the anticipation is too much. She wishes more than anything that he'd just touch her, and when he finally does, it's not in the way that she had been expecting. I hope you liked my little teaser of Song of Survival. Celeste and a group are taken in by some bad bikers. And it's interesting to see how that plays out. Once again, this is a work of fiction, sometimes in dark romance and kinky romance. People don't behave or act the way they would because that's the point of fantasy and sexual fun. If you'd like to find out more about what happens to Celeste and Marcus, please pick up a signed copy of one of my books. You can find them on Amazon or signed by me, ladymackxo.com. I used to do complete full readings. I'd like to do that again. However, they are censored on YouTube and not allowed to be published in full. They are also not allowed to be published on other sites like OnlyFans and Patreon, because when I did do that, it got really unsafe really quickly. I had people there that were there just for nudity, like you normally find on OnlyFans, and I was threatened and blackmailed, and it was a horrible experience. So if you're still here from that time, I appreciate that. Maybe one day there will be another platform that will not be as heavily sex themed that I will be allowed to post my stuff on and pay for, and you guys can get the full story. I may go back to Patreon, but I just have to loophole it. Anyway, that's the story for another day. There's my reading. Stay tuned for some spicier stuff from Another Woman's Sins coming. It does involve knife play. And I have some other short readings I'd like to share with you guys too, coming up. I'd like to know what you guys want to hear. Keeping in mind that I cannot get into extreme full scenes anymore without getting striked on my channel. I have to ease into it. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Appreciate you all. And I'll have some more stuff soon. Cheers.